There will be a time in each person's life, what we call it just end of life. You start looking at your own life and you start thinking about what were we doing here? What's the meaning of my life? Palliative tends to formalize it. The only situation would be the sudden death. Die with the least number of regrets. Looking after somebody to keep his or her dignity in life till the end, helping that person to live and die in dignity, helping that person to go through a humane, comfortable as possible life till the end.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম দর্শক মণ্ডলী, আজকের ওয়ার্ডস অফ উইজডমের একটি বিশেষ পর্বে আমরা স্বাগত জানিয়েছি এমন একজন মানুষকে, যিনি তার জীবনের সবচেয়ে বড় সময়টাই কাটিয়েছেন এমন কিছু মানুষের সান্নিধ্যে যারা তাদের জীবনের শেষ সময়টি অতিক্রম করছেন বা ভুগছেন এমন কিছু রোগে যা হয়তো আজীবন তাদের বয়ে বেড়াতে হবে। এবং হাজার হাজার মানুষের জীবনের শেষ সময়টুকুকে কাছ থেকে দেখার এই অভিজ্ঞতা তাকে দিয়েছে জীবন এবং মৃত্যু সম্পর্কে গভীর অনুভূতি, উপলব্ধি এবং ভাবনা, যা তাকে তার যে সেবা, তার যে মানুষকে নিয়ে তার যে পরিকল্পনা, সেটাকে আরও সাজাতে, আরও গোছাতে সাহায্য করেছে। ডাক্তার সুরেশ কুমার দক্ষিণ ভারতের কেরালা রাজ্যের কোরিকোর ভিত্তিক যে প্যালিয়েটিভ কেয়ার কার্যক্রম, যেটাকে তিনি শুধু ভারতবর্ষ নয়, ভারতবর্ষের বাইরেও এশিয়ার বিভিন্ন দেশে এবং ইউরোপে বিস্তৃত করেছেন তার গভীর উপলব্ধি, পরিকল্পনা এবং পরিশ্রম দিয়ে। এবং বাংলাদেশের প্যালিয়েটিভ কেয়ার কার্যক্রমেও তার রয়েছে পায়োনিয়ার ভূমিকা, যা আমরা তার কাছ থেকেই শুনব। দর্শক মণ্ডলী, আমাদের এই আলাপচারিতাটি এটা ইংরেজিতে হবে, তবে সুবিধার জন্য আমরা এটাকে সাবটাইটেলে রূপান্তর করে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করব, যাতে উনি ওনার যে উপলব্ধি বা ওনার যে বক্তব্য সে বিষয়গুলো আমাদের কাছে বোধগম্য হয়। হ্যালো স্যার, হাউ আর ইউ?
Hello, fine, thank you.
We came to know that you were just on a 7-day visit to Bangladesh, but before you came more than 20 times to Bangladesh, and we want to know something about your experiences and contribution to Bangladesh's palliative care services and scenario. But before that, can you please help our viewers understand the term palliative care?
Okay, I'll make it simple and brief. Like as human beings, we all need to support each other at various points in life. Without supporting each other, we cannot go ahead. There will be a time in each person's life, what we call it just end of life. Sometimes maybe days, sometimes maybe years, when you definitely need support from others, because you cannot survive without support, and your survival, your well-being, your dignity all depends on how the other people behave to you. Palliative care essentially looks at this period, your end of life. It can be, for example, somebody getting old. When you get old, you have multiple problems, naturally. People live longer nowadays, but the problems also persist. You have joint pains, you have memory losses, you find it difficult to walk, you find it difficult to eat. You also find like emotional issues. You get sad, emotionally labile, more labile.
And used to forget
you get
things,
angry more frequently. And people notice that. Like people say that he
Memory
was
loss.
not like this when he was younger. So this is something. And also social issues. Lose some of the connections, you lose some of the position that you have. Less people tend to talk to you, and people who talk to you talk less, and there may be financial problems. And there may be, again, an area which I broadly consider as spiritual. You start looking at your own life and you start thinking about what were we doing here? What's the meaning of my life? Have I served a purpose? These sort of questions also come. It can be broadly existential crisis. You can also call it, if you're, sometimes you call it a religious issue. So this can happen when you're elderly. This can happen when you're quite young, but you have a major disease, life-threatening. For example, a cancer which cannot be cured, or a heart disease which cannot be cured. or a lung disease which cannot be cured, or kidney disease. So most of the people are people who are in the later age. But there are also a large number of people who are in the earlier ages. So these people need support. And our society, they were getting some support all along. Generally, we have some ways of support. We know that, okay, we need to support them.
And the big support is from the family.
Yeah, family and some of the neighbors, some of the old friends come in and support, some of the social workers or political workers, religious workers. So this has been being done. But palliative care tends to formalize it, brings the whole thing into a single package and say that, okay, this person would need support for those symptoms and the symptoms need to be addressed. So it draws from the medical science and say that, okay, if you do this, this symptom can be controlled. Yeah. So that's a body of knowledge there. Then it looks at the emotional problems and say that what are the ways of addressing emotional problems, but particularly in this patient. And it looks at the social support system and say that what are the possible systems. And spiritually, what is possible. This is a package specific for this human being, because my emotional problems, my physical symptoms may be sometimes similar to another person's physical symptoms, but my emotional problems, my spiritual problem, my social issues will be different. So the idea is to give a package and offer it as a package, unique package, depending on. So this is what palliative is. So this is highly personalized, but it works within a frame on evidence, on what is available and what need to be done and what can be done. So you need people to deliver it. Then who can deliver it is the question that I will address later. But this is what is palliative care is. Looking after somebody to keep his or her dignity in life till the end, helping that person to live and die in dignity, helping that person to go through a humane, comfortable as possible life till the end. Because that person at that stage is not he or she has lived a life. It may be in old age or even in a younger age, he has left behind a life, and that person might have taken multiple roles in life and it's not just the helpless individual that you see now. It has a past, and so this is the idea. Idea is so it has multiple dimensions. Yeah, and the beauty is that you can take it any level.
So you're saying that the conventional medical system isn't sufficient to cure these patients?
No, two ways. The conventional medical system, I'm also a medical doctor. Yeah. So when you train a medical person, you are trained to look at disease just and physical. The treatment as a fight between you and the disease. Medical science, generally, the way it is taught, generally does not look at that as a natural end. So naturally what happens is, when I treat a patient and I find that this is going out of control, the most majority tend to ignore the patient. And the medical system usually rejects this patient. The hospital would tell you that there is nothing else that we can do, take the patient home. We have been telling doctors and nurses that within the medical system, you still have a major role to play, because you can still control the symptoms. Somebody coming in with pain, and you start treating a disease. You start treating the disease and the pain. And at some stage, you realize that the disease is not getting controlled. Then we are telling the doctors that you cannot abandon the patient at that time. He or she is still your patient. And you cannot tell the patient that I'll treat your pain only if your disease is curable. So after to cure, and even when it fails, you have a moral and professional responsibility to treat that symptom, which you can. So this is the difference in mindset and which need to be. And also there are additional skills and competencies in medical science that is needed. Generally, medical system cannot look at the person holistically. When we are taught, some of these textbooks or some of these philosophers in medicine say that you need to see not the disease but the whole person. But practically it never happens.
It's not possible.
It's possible, but it's not the way we have been taught. It's not the way we have been practicing. So you tend to focus on the clinical area. And you tend to ignore the social issues, the spiritual issues, emotional issues. Sometimes you may have a psychologist addressing the emotional issues to some extent, but generally when you approach the problem, you tend to look at it as a medical problem. But death and dying are not medical problems. They have a medical component, they are bigger problems. So this is the one way of looking at it, but generally these are sort of rejects from the system.
I could understand that it's about the people who are gonna die very soon. But if a person is apparently in good health and is not suffering from any terminal illnesses, why should they be concerned about palliative care?
We know that we all will die one day. There is no escape from that. And also, we have data on how people die. I quote this very often. 10 to 12% of people die suddenly. Suddenly means without any warning, without knowing before that they are going to die on that day, without any further deterioration. It can be, for example, an accident. It can be a major heart attack, unexpected. It can be a homicide, somebody killing you and you getting killed. That can happen to 10% of people. Yeah. The other 90% of us, now I'm not talking about the patient there, I'm talking about us. The 90% of us will go through a phase, either bedridden or half bedridden, where we would, before we die. It may last for a few months, it may last for, sometimes in the case of patients with dementia and all, it may last for a few years. It may even last for a few weeks. But during that time, you definitely need help. Definitely. So there are two reasons why we all should be concerned. One, we are likely to undergo through this stage unless you fit in with the 10% or you decide that you are not going to die. These are the two. Otherwise, you need. Secondly, in your lifetime, you will come across a lot of your people who are close to you, either your family members or your neighbors, your friends or friends' relatives who go through this stage. You cannot escape that. Before you leave this world, you will come across a lot of situations where others suffer. You see the others suffer, and also you also suffer at the end. So for the sake of others, you need to learn how to handle this. Because when a close relative is bedridden and you know that he or she is dying, you always make a visit. But when you make a visit, you say, go there and you do not know what to say. This is usual, because you are worried that he may ask some questions which are difficult, which you will not be able to answer. So what usually happens is you make some small talk and you tell them that everything will be all right, fully knowing that everything will not be all right. And then you try to spend some time with the family members or with the other visitors. So if you know how to deal the situation, if you know what to do to help that person or the family, things would be better. So that's why we are suggesting that everybody should learn. This skill or knowledge will come handy sometime in your life. And then for you to die comfortably, somebody else should learn it.
And you term a phrase like wisdom of dying. What is that?
I have seen a lot of people dying, huge number of people dying under my care or under my juniors' care. Last 30 years I've been doing this work, which means, and what conventionally happens when somebody is about to die and somebody realizes that, when I realize that I am going to die, sometimes I have a lot of questions and worries and anxieties and thoughts about it. So when I try to express them, people generally resist. When I'm in my bed and severely ill, and when I start talking about death, the immediate reaction from the family would be, no, don't. Why do you talk about death now? So the result that I will not be able to communicate this with anybody. So some of my patients realize that, okay, they can talk to me about this. I'm open to this. So they request that then we sit down and talk. And so this is somebody talking about his or her concerns at the end of life, worries, anxieties, hopes, dreams, regrets. As part of it, they also reflect on their own life. Say, for example, this was what happened to me at this age, this was what happened to me at this is what went wrong, this is what went right, and so what you get is an honest, down-to-earth reflection on people's life. Because they don't have to hide anything at that point. I've seen thousands of people dying, but a few hundreds, I've had this heart-to-heart conversation. Sitting with them, like two of us only, and listening to the patient. It's mainly listening. I don't have to answer anything. Then I realized that there is a pattern. Like when you look at the whole thing, there is a pattern. There is a pattern for the regrets. There is a pattern for the worries. There is a pattern of reflection. So this is...
What emotion is the most extent?
Mixed. People are sad. Sometimes we even talk about a meaningful time in life, meaningful moments in life. They are happy about that. Then they're sad about something. They're sometimes angry. So it's a mixture of emotions. And it's not just a single sitting and narration.
Yeah.
So they'll do something and we'll fix for another date and another day, and I come back and sit with them, and this is an ongoing process. So when you look at these issues, when you look at what makes them happy, made them happy, what's meaningful, and what are the regrets, we realize that you are also going through the same thing. And if you go like this, at the end you will also come up with the same sort of regrets and unfinished stuff. And so this sort of experience, because this comes from people who have lived their lives and you are about to leave, and many things, many of the stuff that they did earlier now become irrelevant. They realize now that, okay, these are all irrelevant now. So then if you realize this, these are not like things without, like people generally talk about it, but when you realize this from somebody, you start realizing that you need to correct your life, because the life is very finite. It's very fragile.
Yeah.
You cannot take it for granted. And you spend the time loosely without listening to these people. You are wasting a precious thing.
Yeah.
So this is what you realize. I myself have undergone a lot of changes without actually taking a sort of deciding that from tomorrow on. No, that's not a firm decision.
Just now.
Over the time, you tend to do something and you realize that no, this is why do you do it? Because all the people who have done or taken this course have regretted it. So that is what I call wisdom of the dying, which is the essence of life. Because from many people, subjective, but then you collect them, this becomes more objective.
Yeah. Sir, we know that you have been more than 30 years with palliative care. I was just wondering if you could tell us something more about your earlier time. How did you start getting into it?
I was an anesthetist to start with. I ended palliative care not because of any triggering incident or anything. Okay. I took that decision rather deliberately. It was not, palliative care was not known in Kerala at that time. There were no palliative care people at that time. So I was doing some pain-related work for cancer patients, taking away the pain. But when I started talking to them, I realized that the problem is not just pain.
That time palliative care was not at all
known. Even the term was
known.
Not.
So in your medical education, you didn't?
No. Even still, it's not clearly mentioned. Some textbooks start mentioning recently. Okay. And then at that point, we knew that, okay, there are problems. There are problems which need to be addressed either by us or by somebody. At that point, one lady from UK, a palliative care nurse, visited us and she gave a talk on palliative care, and then when we realized that, okay, this is exactly what we are talking about. And then the question was, how do you make it happen? Yeah. It's not entirely a doctor's zone. For example, you can take care of one patient in all the aspects, or 10 patients in all that. 10 is big number. Because this needs individual attention. Yeah. And this needs a lot of
very intensive attention.
Very intensive attention. So at that point, we decided that we will form a small group, a society, and then try to address it whichever way we can. We knew that this problem is enormous, out of our hand, but we thought we would try to do it whichever way.
You also went to overseas for some advanced
training. And at that phase, for my training in palliative medicine, I first went to Oxford for 3 months, came back, and later went again back to UK for another 6 months, and later for another 2 years. I did my post-graduation from University of Wales, and also worked in National Health Service as consultant for 1 year before coming back here.
So when you were trained in those westernized education, but when you return back to your country, your region, you definitely saw that the culture is different, the socioeconomic structure is different. So what were your adaptation plans?
No, when you find that this is an entirely different world. It's a high-income country, and also the positives and negatives. High-income country, much less connection between individual members of the community. They have mostly individuals and freedom and liberty, and individual freedom and individual liberty. They don't connect with each other. Even family is, again, that gives that individual space to the... It has its advantages and disadvantages. It was mainly inpatient units, what we call hospices, where patients are taken in and looked after, and a few home care programs operating, visiting, extension of the hospital. This is what is happening. So I realized that this will not work in my place. Many reasons. For one thing, we don't have that much of money. It's one position if you say that, okay, I'll take 10 patients, I'll look after them well. I'm not bothered to what happens to the others. In that case, you can set up a small setting and take 10 patients and do it.
But very few capacity.
But there will be thousands on the other side. And this is the approach that many palliative care units still take. They do palliative care and they say that our capacity is to take 10 or our capacity is to take to 5. So we handled that perfectly. But my thought was is different. Like whatever you offer, you need to offer it to a larger number of people, and a lot of people need to have access, and it should be replicable. You cannot replicate a hospice.
Scalable.
So we started working on this, and then started with an outpatient clinic in a medical college hospital and a small home care program. Initially, pillion riding on bikes and all. Later, we acquired a vehicle and all. Then a few people came and suggested that they can work with us as volunteers. We got them also in. But now looking back, now I realize that was also not much different from there is a minor version of an institution or the third world version of an institution-based care. It took us another 6-7 years, and we started in 93, 98, 99. By that time, we realized that, okay, this is not the model. We need to modify it because this is still a doctor-led, clinic-based, institution-based model. We are not utilizing the huge potential of the layperson community because there are a lot of people who would want to involve. A lot of people, if you give direction, a lot of people who want to help the patient. Slowly, we turned it upside down.
Okay.
And said that it's the community which is important.
Okay.
If you teach them how to handle and support them with medical services, that is the hypothesis. They will take the lead and handle it. You need to provide them with the basic principles, training, and also because the medical services either train some of the local people, doctors and nurses to do this.
When they are needed.
Yeah. So when we moved into this mode, there was an enormous response from the community. Like told people that, okay, we are looking for people who are willing to help others in the last phase. So we will give you training. At the initial stage, the concept was, we suggest that you can enroll with us as volunteers and our team will help you. And so community-led groups started appearing, and then we trained them and worked with them. Recently, we refined this again. We are now trying to build the capacity of the community, irrespective of whether they are our volunteers or not. Because ideally speaking, a family or a patient with an illness should not look for a volunteer in the community. Whoever comes in, because anyhow, the family members will be there, neighbors will be there, friends visiting, they should know what to do.
Really?
Ideally, because that's the concept. Because in an ideal world, if I go and visit my neighbor, I should know what exactly I should do to help that person. And so there will be, if there are 100 people visiting, at least 50 of them know what to do, 50 of them know how to talk to the patient, what to do to prevent a bed sore, etc. That will be beneficial. So we are now trying to, at least in my institution, we are trying to generate that sort of manpower. We now train people without asking them to be volunteers.
Okay.
No strings attached. We tell them that, okay, this is a skill that will help you sometime in your life. It's a 3-day training. The doors are open, come and get trained. Because at the time when you really need it, you'll be panicking and you won't have time to learn this. So this is one secure, this can be maintained. And after the training, we also ask them, if you're interested in coming and helping our patient, you're welcome.
To be
even
a volunteer.
for a limited period or someday. So many of them would say that, okay, I can spend half day on Tuesdays, or somebody would say that weekends I can do. So then we sort of allot them. So this is a volunteer pool still maintained, but the concept is not that we train people to be volunteers. We train people to empower them to take care of the situation. And those who want to volunteer, we tell them that, okay, even if you do not help a patient in the community, that's fine. This skill and knowledge will become handy when somebody in your family falls ill. Somebody very close to you falls ill. So it's important that you learn. So this is the changing concept now, emerging concept now. We are trying to push that forward.
My question is that how do you ensure the quality? Like, let's assume one of your volunteers, uncles, suddenly fall into ill, and the doctor said that he got a 4th stage of colon cancer and he's gonna die very soon. So how this volunteer or just a 3-day trained person from your organization is able to handle all these physical, emotional, social, spiritual crisis of this patient and his family?
Yeah.
How?
There are two things operating. One, there is a background support mechanism. This person, like when I train somebody, and also this 3 days training is just the entry point. When they start speaking to the patient, they find that, okay, more problem. They can always come back and either call us or even come back for a retraining, and that's something that's happening. We network, like if they know about the other people who are trained there. That's one thing. Secondly, we support them with the professional team. They don't have to address the physical problems at all. And we ask them not to intervene with the medicines or any of this stuff. So that's entirely provided by the home care team, the nurse and nurse doctor that is happening there. That's one thing. Secondly, my theory is that, and I found it to be true, is that if you're doing some work voluntarily, you're doing it because you really want to do it. The quality of the work should be, I always tell volunteers that the quality of your work should be much above the quality of the same work done by a paid worker. Paid job, you are doing it, you may like the job, you may be passionate about the job, but you're also doing it because you are paid. The volunteer, absolutely no payment. And also, we don't give them even travel expenses. So I tell them that, okay, you do it only if you really want to. But when you do it, make sure that you do it with your utmost passion. You as a volunteer get nothing in payment. All that you get is your mental satisfaction. Which means if you do not do it properly, if you just manage to do something and you do not get the spirit of it. So we've seen that, okay, because they are free to leave, they're free not to do. So when they do it properly. That's, I think, the most important appeal. Because you are not paid and you're not getting anything else. If you do it, and nobody is forcing you to do it.
And very similar to our experience also, sir. We have a huge number of volunteers and they do this work after their profession, after their home care. And they are doing it very dedicatedly, very ardently. Yeah. That's the spirit of the volunteer.
And we also found that you can have a different motivation. But the motivation does not count. Say, you do this act because you have this motivation. Another person do this act because of another motivation. Because you have taken up the decision to do this in the background of this factors, and this is your motivation. If it fits in, you deliver. Otherwise, you don't take it up half-heartedly. That is the main message that you're doing. Nobody is forcing you.
I want to know that who are your volunteers? Like, what's their age group? What's their profession? Or they are from all walks of life?
When you look at the whole of Kerala, you find them from all walks of life. There are retired persons, there are housewives, there are students, there are people in police, there are people, school teachers, there are other agricultural laborers, small-time vendors, auto rickshaw drivers. Everybody.
Very varied.
Very, very varied. My unit particularly, we give an extra focus on students.
Okay.
So 80% of we have a huge volunteer force, Institute of Palliative Medicine. 80% of volunteers are youngsters. People doing the college graduation, college studies, or some of the professional courses, and people who have just completed the courses. And this is a moving population. When they move out, they will hand over to their juniors. These sort of close encounters with real life is transforming. They change their attitude towards life. They become more mature, and they carry this with them. And even I've seen a lot of people who are employed, who are in their 30s and who are early 40s. When there is a need in the community for anything, for example, flood relief or something, these people immediately reach there. And they're not anymore part of the palliative system, but they retain the good elements. That's one thing. Secondly, training given to a 20-year-old person, he or she will use it for hopefully another 40 years, 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah.
So it's more effective in the long term also. So we encourage youngsters to come to us, and we encourage youngsters to get trained. We give them responsibilities and tasks and make sure that they fulfill. We encourage them to work in teams. So this is our workforce is 80% youngsters and 20% other people. Even when you take the whole of Kerala, average age of the volunteer must be less than 40. The point that I'm trying to make is there are a lot of retired people there, but this is not just for retired people. We tell people that you need to make it as part of life, and don't think that, okay, you'll finish all this job, everything, and when I retire, I'll do some good things. No, that's not the idea.
That cannot happen.
If you want to do good things, start doing now itself.
What kind of challenges do you face to handle or coordinate all these type of volunteers and volunteer management?
There are a few questions usually associated with that.
Yeah.
One thing is, how do you enroll volunteers? And we don't enroll. We don't enroll.
You don't enroll.
And at the entry point, we don't also screen them. See, if one person comes in and says that I'm so-and-so, I want to learn. We enroll them for the course without asking why enroll. But they go back and they will be working in their community. The community decides whether they want this guy or not. There have been a lot of occasions, for example, a patient from a village, and there are a couple of volunteers there. We ask them whether they would be interested in spending some time for one particular patient. And then we call the patient's family. And we tell them that, okay, there is this person who is willing to spend time. Because they are in the same area, people generally know each other. And shall we ask him to come over? Sometimes the family says, no, not this person.
Okay.
There may be personal issues. There may be some of them say that he drinks a lot and we don't want him. And so the screening happens at the delivery level. Even if you are trained, if you are not acceptable to the local community, you will not be taken in. If you have a criminal record, for example, people will say that, okay, no. We don't take responsibility for the screening. We take responsibility for only training and also introducing. Again, during training, there are a lot of topics which are specifically taken up, like ethics, how do you do it, how do you organize, and those things. And we certify and leave them. And we don't exert any control over them. We expect the local people to exert control over them.
It's a very no-pressure model.
Yeah, because we have faith on the goodness of people. There are no really bad persons or really good person. Each one of us has multiple streaks in life. Even a really good person will have a few really bad streaks. We are trying to cultivate the compassionate streak. And we are hoping that, okay, given the right context and situation, a person who is not even otherwise selfish or is not acting in other person's interest, given an opportunity, he or she may do. So we are giving that opportunity and hoping that he do it. And also this is done in a very transparent way. And this is mainly caring. You cannot sort of misuse it. How do you misuse your caring? You can say that, okay, this group is involved and they looks after only people who are affiliated to them. I tell them that that's also fine, because as long as you make it very clear, because these people are getting some support. We have political parties involved in palliative care. They came with requests, and when we decided to train them, there was some opposition from within palliative care circles, and that if you train a political party carer, they may misuse it. I asked them, why? How can they misuse it? You can say that they may be selective. That's the only but we made it clear that it would not be selective, and they agreed. The other issue was that, okay, they may use it for their political advantage. Use it for getting votes next time. So I told them that, okay, I would rather a person who has taken training and proven to be compassionate and helping the other people, him as my representative, rather than the person who is just political. And also, as long as you don't close the door for the other people, they can also very well come and get training. We are suggesting that you do a good thing, and this person does a good thing, and he gets benefit of it. Well and good. I'm not bothered. So this is actually... you need to deliver this, and then whatever be your motivation, if you deliver it properly, you are happy.
I think that's the secret of your expansion. It's a very free model.
The platform is open for everybody. Given the opportunity, people majority of them will take up. As long as they deliver it in true spirit. Somebody may do it because of their concerns about afterlife. God will reward me. I don't want anything. Somebody may do it because they want to stand in the next election. Somebody may do it because they realize that when you start doing it, their neighbors and colleagues appreciate it.
Yeah.
Generally people then... Somebody may do it just because end of the day, they want to feel that they are a much better person than whatever. That's immaterial.
Very number of motivations.
Motivations.
Does palliative care requires a patient must know about their terminal illnesses and about their death very soon? Don't you think that this when they get to know about this truth, that can impact very negatively, or they can have a very emotional setback that can deteriorate their physical recovery or physical discomfort?
Yeah, that's actually a difficult situation. The roots are much deeper. We all know that we'll die one day. We all know that death is the natural end of this life. We know this because we have seen this happening. But we always think that this will happen to other people. We never think that I will go through it. People contemplating on their own death, even if they see other people dying, this is not usual. Generally, most societies, most communities are death denying. They deny death. So the reason for seeing death as like hopeless situation, as something that is terrible. For example, we've seen a lot of situations. For example, a patient knows that he is likely to live only for 3 months. The wisest thing in that situation, anyhow you are going to die in 3 months, it will be to put your things in order. What do you want to do in 3 months? Is there anything that you can complete? And because you are likely to. What happens very often is that the patient and family panic and they try desperately to extend it for one more day. Can I, instead of 90 days, how can I live for 91 days? It does not make any difference and does not make any sense. But they cannot address it at that time very often. The problem is in the society. You need to look at death as a natural process. You need to talk and think about your own death early enough. What we call death literacy. The general knowledge that death will happen is not adequate. The specific knowledge that death will happen to me and how will I face it is needed. If that does not happen, the situation that you suggested come. This is the situation most of the societies. Like you somehow try to prevent it as if preventing it now will make sure that you don't live eternally. So you do everything possible, cover comfortably, but fully knowing that, okay, you have to die one day. And also knowing that, okay, planning that people do not plan the last days or death. How am I going to spend my last days or last weeks and whenever it happens? You do not know when it's going to happen. In the case of the 10% people who suddenly die, you may not have time. But in the case of 90% of people, you have time to address some of these issues and how do I. So this is not an easy solution. When a particular patient... generally, but again, on the other hand, generally without your telling, a patient knows inside that because the way they are deteriorating, the way people start behaving before them, they realize that. And then the dilemma is that they realize it, then nobody is willing to talk to them about it. If they want to talk to them about it, nobody is willing to listen. And everybody is behaving as if he or she is not going to die. Everybody is behaving and trying to push it for a few more days, irrespective of what quality of life and what. So needs a wider, deeper involvement, promoting death literacy, promoting the concept. That's why we have been doing the death cafes and advanced directives and encourage people to look at their death. That will always be useful. And particularly when you are looking at your death now, when you feel that you are not likely to die within a few months or few weeks, the situation may change later when you actually face it, but thinking about some of the things, making things out. Because everything in our life, we plan. For example, marriage or education or children's education.
Even we plan before we go to a shopping.
Build a house. Even for shopping, you plan.
We plan.
And
That's
then this is an ultimate thing in your life and most important thing in your life. You don't plan. And then you face it as if this is something new, as if this has not happened to anybody and this has happened to one. And the people also behave as if this is happening only to you. The person dying and the people around that person behave as if, oh, poor guy, he is dying. As if this is the only guy who is dying and I am not going to die. So we need to take out this, the false sense of immortality out. That's important.
And moreover, sir, there is also a social and financial impact of death denial. You know, last year when Nizam sir was here and we were talking in this platform, Words of Wisdom, I was saying about a teenage boy who was suffering from cancer, colon cancer, 4th stage of colon cancer. The boy was just 20 and the mother was desperate to treat this boy. And they had just only one property, a 4-story building. Ultimately, they sold it. They went abroad for the treatment. And after 6 months, the boy died. Now, my question is, what could we tell this mother so that she could think at least twice before selling this property and before making the life of her another 3 more children difficult?
When it comes to younger people, the concepts of incomplete life, all this comes, which makes it all the more difficult. The family is in a huge emotional turmoil. And then it's very difficult to think rationally at that time. Very often they are doing some of these irrational things. We emotionally settle to say that, okay, I've done everything possible, even if you know that this is going to be futile. So the most important thing would be to be emotionally supportive to the family and also try to gently negotiate the rationality of what will happen, what's likely to happen, why are you doing it. But that person would need a lot of support, emotional support, because it's a very difficult decision. Very difficult decision. Even if an elderly person, the decision not to put the person on ventilator, if you put that before the family, if the person has not made his wishes clear earlier. So that's why, again, we suggest that people think about it and make the wishes clear, because don't put your family in a difficult situation later. Particularly, we need to know that the family needs huge amount of emotional support to settle and rationally discuss. Otherwise, they would
do the wrong decision. So you were saying about life support and ICU. We know that these are one of the best blessings of modern medical system. But yet, and we also know that there are some cases where some business-minded hospitals make it like a profit-making trick for patients. And you know that the family is in a very emotionally turmoil situation. So it's very difficult for them to take the decision whether they should put their patient in ICU or not. So what's your reflection on that?
Now, again, what happens is, over the last 25 years, critical care medicine and emergency medicine has advanced enormously, benefiting huge number of people. But if you do not select the patient, if you admit a patient who is likely to get back or likely to regain function or get back to life, that's the ideal patient for the ICU. If you admit a patient who is anyhow likely to die, this will only cause the person to die in the ICU.
But who will decide that?
Again, the roots are in the society. There is something called what we usually call death systems. Death system is the way a community decides how people in that community need to be taken care of during the last days and also during death and after death. It involves, when I say community, there will be subdivisions. For example, it may be religion-wise. Again, within that, it may be socioeconomic status-wise. This is the system which says that, okay, when somebody is bedridden or dying, you need to visit. you need to support the family. And at the dying time, these are the things to be done. This is how the funeral to be, and this is how the disposing of the body to be. This is sort of support you should offer. This may be sometimes religious norms, sometimes a mixture of religious and social norms. And so this is set. It changes time to time, but the problem that the current upper middle class and upper class community, particularly urban community, the death system says that you should die because even if it's a difficult situation, you should take that person to the ICU. This is the mindset. And I've been talking to a lot of family members. So I sometimes write about these issues in newspapers and popular thing, and then I get a huge response. And most of them will be people making calls saying that I regret, yes, I agree with you, and I took my mother to the ICU. She was dying, and then she had a really miserable end, and I regret it. Why? I know why. Why they do it? Why? If you ask the person why you did it, if you fully knew that, okay, she will die. I said, if I don't do it, my other family members will blame me for not doing it. That's the system. That is the mindset. That is the system. And some of the families, actually, family themselves knew that, okay. But they said, what would our neighbors say? So there is a huge social pressure. People see hospital as the place for everything. If you do not take your dad to the hospital in his last phase, the gossip would be that this guy educated all the children and they are in good position. Now they don't even take him to the hospital. So this is you are worried about that. Then you do. That's one reason. Hospitals, again, there is an issue. I talked to the hospitals and they said, see, an ambulance comes in, there's a dying person there, this rushes in, they shift us into the emergency room. And if I tell them that, okay, he's anyhow dying, he looks comfortable, we don't have to do anything, we can keep him here, but no intervention, they'll be very upset. They want you to make some, they want you to put in some tubes. That's one reason. There's also a hidden reason that, okay, all these high-tech equipments are expensive. And this is an investment. They want them to be occupied. So when you talk to the ICU hospital owner or the ICU people, if they find 3 beds vacant, that's actually a loss of huge income because many of them are on loan and repayment. So this is also so it's a combination of all these factors, and you cannot correct it just by addressing the family. Okay. Because there is a huge pressure on them. So we need to look at the what we call the system, analyze it and see. Because I see even in Kerala, we have plenty of palliative care units, 1,800, more than 1,800 units there. In spite of that, very often we find the middle class or upper class person getting rushed to the ICU. And we inquire, and because the rational thing would be the help is available at home and the symptom relief is covered. And the best thing for that person would be to die at home. But then you're worried about your neighbors. You're worried about the distant uncle who would come back. And you're worried about the relative in Gulf. He'll come back and tell you that I would have spent a lot of money. Why did you? So this is a complex situation. But again, it's not a simple solution, but need again back to the original question of death literacy, being aware, making statements, making declarations.
All about sensitization.
And also telling others. It's important that if you don't want to die in the ICU, there are people who want to die in the ICU. That's another thing. Away from the home, I don't want anybody to be around me and crying and all. I would better be put in an isolated place. Even if it's an ICU, I don't mind. There are people who say that. But if you do not want that to happen, tell people around you. And prepare a small note and show it to people and discuss with them. So that when it came to decision making, they would say that, okay, she had expressed this wish. So we should follow. So that gives them an excuse also to tell the neighbors and withstand pressure if they want. They can say that, okay, we didn't do it because he specifically suggested that I should not be taken to the hospital. So that's one way of doing it.
It's the best practice, actually. Now, sir, another philosophical question that you say that living well is dying well. What does that mean?
This is again part of the wisdom of the dying. Looking at the physical symptoms, emotional support being offered, social support, very good social support being offered. We found that a lot of people still suffer at the end of life. We have found that people who die comfortably have a sense of completion in their life. They very often have a philosophy in their life. They very often have identified some of the purpose of this. May be religious, this may not be religious. This may be political, but somebody who has identified a purpose, somebody who has done some work to fulfill that, and somebody looking back says that, okay, at least one streak of my life has been really purposeful, meaningful. It's about when if you live a meaningful life, you tend to die more comfortably. If you live a very sort of turbulent, hazardous sort of, without a sense of direction, you panic more at the time of your death. So this is because the whole symphony matters, not just the last note. Because you cannot have a really terrible symphony and a really good note. Like the only situation would be the sudden death, because you do not know what's happening and you do not know whether this is peaceful or not. You die before that. But for most of us, when we face death, when we know that, okay, we are likely to die soon, when you know that you are likely to die anytime or anytime in future, it makes sense to put some of these things in order. Looking at your life. What's this life? What do you want to do with it?
All the time in a self-analysis.
Are you spending time the way you really want to spend time? If not, where are the barriers? What do you need? So this should be a regular reflection process so that you don't have to reflect on this in the last moment. So that's one important thing. Like die with least number of, I'm not saying that die with no regrets, but that may not be possible. Die with the least number of regrets. Looking back, I shouldn't have done it, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done it, what a life it is. That's miserable. So it's time to reflect on it. Should I be doing it? Should I be not doing this? Am I spending my time correctly? Because I have only limited time.
So did you see persons like those who die with least regrets in your personal profession?
I've seen not a huge number. I've seen people dying really well and peaceful and talking about it. And then this was the one thing. Like it doesn't matter what you identify as the purpose of your life. If you have a purpose in life, if you say that I'm doing this is what I'm supposed to do and this is what I want to do, that's one thing. Secondly, if you have certain things in mind, important things in mind, you have finished it before you die. So the important thing is very often what we see is you postpone the most important thing to do. Like you always wanted to do this. Maybe, for example, a travel. This may be going to a place, listening to somebody or doing something, completing something. You engage in day-to-day stuff and then you would say that, okay, I'll do that next year. And you never do it the next year. So by the time you really find that, okay, it's too late, you cannot do it. This is one of the major requests. This may not be big things and complicated things, but one suggestion that I always make to people that you will anyhow die and you do not know when you are going to die. So if there is something important that you want to do or experience or something, do it now. Don't wait because you do not know what will happen tomorrow. Because the place where you sit is very fragile. It can be death or it can be a major problem with your health. When we move around, when we function normally, we take it for granted.
But it's not taken for granted.
And then suddenly you realize that this cannot be. So doing things which are really important, doing them immediately. Reflecting on one's own life to ask whether this is what I want to do. Is there anything that I want to do? Will it make any sense throughout my life? That's also important because you want to construct a house and you somehow complete that house. But when you're dying, it may not make any sense. That you won't count it as an achievement, as some of the routine things that you do. But above that, is there anything consistent in my life that I want to do? Anything sort of. Again, this is a point that we raise when we talk to the volunteers also. This is more beneficial to you because end of the day you will find that all the people are entitled to dignity in life. The way you live, if you do a self-appraisal, do you think that this is a dignified way of living? If you find that this is not a dignified way of living, what do you do? When you talk about death, you are in essence talking about life. Because so
that's very true.
that's the starting point. And when you realize that, okay, it's intimately connected with my life and the way I live, things that I do, things that I do not know. Yeah.
Sir, I wonder if you could tell us something about meditation. What do you think the impact of meditation on palliative care?
My interaction with Quantum Foundation.
Yeah.
Actually, Quantum Foundation is a group which dwells a lot in spirituality and peace in life and a way of living. I come with the concept of living well and dying well. And then it's a social component, it has a spiritual component, it has a physical component. And I share that concept with you. And I'm hoping that you will innovate on it. I'm not suggesting that you take it as a package. All these components need to be in. And it's so individual, so personalized, so different. When I took the concept of palliative care from UK, the concept was, again, the dignity of human life, dignity at the time of dying. And
it was their essence.
It was there. But the way I sort of interpreted it and made it into action was different in Kerala.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? You want to make sure that this individual maintains his or her sense of dignity, is as comfortable as possible, and leave the world with a sense of companionship, feeling that, okay, I've been looked after well, feeling that I have done something. An organization or a group with a philosophy, the task would be to see, so when you adopt this concept into this philosophy, it may be meditation, it may be a reflection, it may be some other activity. So how do you translate this into a practical action plan which is applicable to? It's one tool in the area of well-being and also spiritual concerns. But again, it may not work with everybody. What the sort of person it works with, what the sort of person, what is the precondition. So when you develop this, where you see that it works within the group. The Quantum Foundation people have found meditation to be helpful. Then the question that when you want to apply this as part of palliative care, the question that you need to raise is, what are the preconditions that fulfill? Why does this group of people find it useful? How can it be adapted to another situation? So there's a lot of, I expect and hope that this sort of work in dynamic interaction with the concept and the philosophy of Quantum Foundation will result in a new product. It's an adapted product. It's based on the basic principles of community-based palliative care, but it also imbibes the philosophy and principles of quantum. That's necessary
for actually adaptation.
Adaptation.
Remember
the basic principles and apply your mind on it and apply your knowledge and skills on it and come out with a new product which has its roots in the same concept, but which is a product of interaction between the two philosophies. Very, very overlapping. But then how do you deliver? So that's the task actually. I'm not suggesting that you take it up mechanically and deliver.
And I should say, sir, it's very aligned. In fact, quantum method is more than meditation, and it's a life science.
So I agree. I suggest that take this in and see that where does it practically fit in? If we really want to help people in the community, people who are dying, and also we know that this is about people who are living. We take it back to the health literacy thing and then make sure that people see the basic principles are, for example, the broader. One, you see death as part of life. People talk about it, but how do you make them see? Secondly, you see that the person is valued even till the last end. Your being bedridden does not make you dispensable or worthless. So that's again the second one. And the third one is that we all have responsibility to support each other, particularly at the difficult time, because we also will need support. So these are the three basic principles on which you work. So how do you amalgamate this thing and deliver is the question.
Now, sir, the scene of Bangladesh's palliative care. Actually, when did you get involved in Bangladesh's palliative care?
Actually started with Nizam coming to my place, exploring. He was on an exploration to see what this is.
How many years before?
That was 2004, I think.
I think 18 years.
So he came, he wrote to me and I said, welcome, please come, but come prepared for a 6-week course if you really want to get the spirit of it. So he came and took the course and came back. So he wanted to do something similar. And then on his invitation, I came. 2005, and we had one national conference and started. I was working all the time. I was working very closely with him.
That time, palliative care was very unknown.
There is no But since
knowledge
he was
about it.
Working in BSMMU, he decided that okay, let me try it within my institution.
Okay.
Can BSMMU start a palliative care initiative? So he started working on it, and it became hugely successful because within no time, BSMMU has had a palliative care center, and BSMU became the first university in the whole of low middle income countries to start an MD course in palliative medicine. So that is a major step institution-wise. And this well-developed palliative care department there now. So it's going on.
And you played a very pivotal role in that.
I was
Nizam
with him all the time,
told me.
That including the course and everything. And but that is the most important person, and this is one of the renowned or stable departments in whole of low middle income, particularly CRO, Southeast Asian regional countries. On the negative side, when you start from again, it's a learning for us. When you start from an institution, it's very difficult to leave the institution and start from the community because you tend to become sort of an extension of the institution in the community.
Very academic bound.
Okay. So community-based palliative care has not developed much in, except a few home care programs. In Dhaka particularly, there are few home care programs, and there are 21 initiatives now in Dhaka.
Okay.
But practically nothing outside Dhaka. And practically nothing in the villages. Very little involvement of the common man. Common man still consider, even if they know about palliative care, they consider themselves as a recipient, potential recipient. A home care team or institution should come, and this still institutionalized medical. That area now we need to work on, because the established institution can act as a training center. So that is done. There are people who can teach the doctors and nurses on palliative care. But the community work is a different game altogether. It doesn't follow the rules of the institutional wisdom. So this is something which need to be initiated. Unless you have this, you will be stuck with a few institutions delivering medical care, and not involving the people. And
what's your recommendations for developing the palliative care scene in Bangladesh?
My recommendation would be local initiatives, open to everybody, irrespective of what their background is. Like we had a brief discussion in Chittagong a couple of days back. Those who are interested. So a senior retired doctor came, a lawyer came, a couple of political activists came, a journalist, and one of the publishers. Like this is a sort of group.
Yeah.
If they can spread the message and they can take it upon themselves, best would be to start from the bottom, and also see professional service as part of the care, but not depend heavily on professional service. So, if there are people in the community who are interested in other people, positive way or negative, this is the community which will do
or
it.
Negative.
Well, you show some interest in the other person's life. That's a good thing. It's much better than doing your own thing, not interested in anybody else
like
or anything
Western
else.
Model.
You go home and you're interested only in your family, or come back. You have some interest in other people. It may be political, it may be social, it may be religious, whatever. It may be your own. So if you have that spirit, that's the spirit which shows that, okay, there is something in this community which should work. Because for example, when you go to community, I had done a project in Switzerland for a couple of years, and I was telling that that's the most difficult one. He does his own business. Good morning, he goes to work.
Very individualistic.
Very individualistic. He is not bothered, or he won't interfere with any of the other stuff. He will not take up anybody else, any problem. Comes back, very law abiding. He obeys all the laws. He comes back home and he spends time with his home. Next morning he goes back. He's not interested in his neighbor.
Very self-centered.
So that's a difficult situation. But most of our communities,
but we are not
Asian,
like that.
African, Latin American, we take a lot of interest in other. What's happening there?
Yeah.
Should I go and intervene? So that's the spirit.
That's the potential structure. We are very honored and proud that you spent a lot more time with Quantum Foundation in Mukto Alochona, visiting Lama, and giving us this time. So overall, what do you think about Quantum Foundation, Quantum Method, and the people? Can they be adapted with your idea?
Actually, I must say that I'm exploring. This trip was decided. It was I who suggested that I must go back to Quantum because I have some interest in. I not fully learned what Quantum says. He has given me some more booklets and some more material that I'll go through. But I'm interested in the scientific way of living, peacefulness in life and death, reflecting on oneself. These are also a lot of things which are of interest to me also.
Yeah.
And then also the work that you do in the education sector. I visited the blood bank last time. I visited the school for a couple of times. So I'm impressed with what you do.
Even the wisdom of dying, it's also embedded in our philosophy.
Yeah. So we need to, again, make it concrete and deliver that. So I think that there are a lot of areas of overlapping between my thinking and what you're doing. I've exposed to a few people in Quantum, and this was a good experience. And I've been to a few places where Quantum was. This has been a good experience. Then I need to explore further, but whatever I have seen, sort of happy. Whatever I have seen interests me. Whatever I have seen, again, sort of I want to explore further. So that's the basic position. Critically look at what I've been saying. And then, sort of adapt, modify, or contradict, whichever way. And I like the conversations with the Quantum team, individuals who are in Quantum also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so very much, sir, for your valuable talks and precious time. And you were very occupied till you give us this advantage to spend some time with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm also happy that I could spend some time again with the Quantum team a few days back now and in Lama. And I hope
today you are going back.
I'm going back. I'm taking the afternoon flight back home.
Yeah.
Hope to come back and spend when I come back to Bangladesh. Definitely, I hope to spend more time with Quantum.
Thank you, sir.
Learn and discuss, and the conversation also helps because exchanging ideas and looking at what it is.
It broadens the scope for sensitization. It's very important. Thank you, sir. Thank you. দর্শক মণ্ডলী, আমরা শুনলাম ডাক্তার সুরেশ কুমারের উপলব্ধি, জীবন এবং কাজ নিয়ে নানা অভিজ্ঞতার কথা। এবং আমরা বিশ্বাস করি যে আসলে তার এই আলাপচারিতা আমাদের অনেককেই হয়তো এমন কিছু উপলব্ধিতে উদ্ভাসিত করছে যা আমাদের জীবনকেও করতে পারে আরও মহিমান্বিত। এবং যে কনসেপ্টটি তিনি বলেছেন যে লিভিং ওয়েল ইজ ডাইং ওয়েল, যেটাকে আমরাও খুব গভীরভাবে বিশ্বাস করি, তার প্রক্রিয়াতেই আমরা হয়তো আমাদের এই জীবনকে পরিচালিত করতে পারবো যদি এই কথাগুলোর কোনো অংশ আমাদেরকে কিছুটা উৎসাহিত করে থাকে। এরই সাথে শেষ করছি আমাদের আজকের ওয়ার্ডস অফ উইজডম। আপনাদের সবাইকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আপনার ওপর শান্তি বর্ষিত হোক।